Okay, welcome back. Today we start the Class 2 Beginner's Bonsai class. We're going to start right where we left off last time. Today we're going to talk about basic tools. We're going to talk about pruning and pinching. We're going to do some wiring techniques, and we're going to wire our branches. Basic tools. Bonsai people have tools that they use, and the very most important one is a good sharp shear. There's many types of shears. The one on the left is a long reach shear. The one on the right is more of an inexpensive type. The next thing in your toolbox should be a concave cutter. Makes a real nice sharp and close cut right up next to the trunk. Cousin to the concave cutter is the knob cutter. Does a very similar cut, more like a grab, and takes a slight divot. The next one is a root pick. Neat thing to have if when you're repotting. Root picks come in lots of shapes and sizes. 1 tine, 2 tine, 3 tine, lots of different types, but you need a good root pick. Here's a double. And you need a wire cutter. Take a look at this wire cutter. It's a little bit different than the normal Western type. It's got a snub or rounded nose, which allows you to get real deep in towards the tree, but not injure the bark when you're cutting wire off of a tree branch. So this would be the kit. Something like this would be really awesome. Look for them on the internet and get yourself a bonsai toolkit. Alright, remember last time we chose the front and we chose the branching. Remember that? So what's next? So the words of the day will be pruning and pinching. Pruning is like cutting limbs, doing major shaping of branches, designing a tree. Pinching, as opposed to pruning, is more of a maintenance type of cutting. Small cuts here and there to keep things under control. So let's talk about pruning cuts. We prune a tree to design it. The original shaping or carving out of a tree from rough stock. We also prune to thin branches. You can see these are bird's eye view of a branch looking down from the top. The one on the right is the before, the one on the left is the after. You can see it's been pruned for shape and it's been thinned out considerably, each of those. So pruning can be directed by many ways. A lot of folks have trouble deciding where to go on pruning. There's been a lot of books written, a lot of magazines that shows before and after pruning. You can see on this one you have a little tree, a little shohin tree, and it shows the cut marks in red over here, and then the afterwards shows the cut and how it looks afterwards. So it will give you some really good directions in how to prune your tree. When we do pruning, we use the concave cutters a lot. They got a real short fulcrum, and they're very strong and they're very sharp. So we also do pruning to refine the shape of trees. That's what we're going to be doing on our little trees today. We're pruning to refine and give us shape. So let's talk about pinching. Pinching you hear about a lot. I've been pinching my trees. A lot of folks talk about pinching and they're still using shears. To my way of thinking, it's a more refined type of pruning. Also, a lot of folks would call it trimming. Some examples of pinching. So on maples, a good way to slow down growth and do maintenance pruning, pinching, is to take out the middle leaf on the maples as they start to extend. That would be a form of pinching. How about junipers? Junipers are really easy. Pinching a juniper just means grabbing a bundle of needles with your left hand if you're a righty, and grab it with your right hand and just pluck off the growth that's extending. That's pinching a juniper. Pinching on an elm or any tree similar to elm would be a matter of letting the growth extend and then cutting back to 2 or 3 or 4 leaves, whatever you decide is proper for you. Now on to wiring. Wiring techniques. Why do we wire? Wire is the way we really give direction to branches. A lot of times folks will try and do all their work with scissors, the so-called cut and grow style. And that's fine, but if you really want to move a tree along, wiring is the way to go. We also use wiring for an illusion of age, in that we can bring the wires to bring the branches to a lower than horizontal position, which gives the feeling of age. We can also fill in areas that are sparse. If we have parallel branches, like we talked about parallel branches last time, you can move tree branches right or left and fill in areas that need some action on your tree. So wire. What is wire? Two types of main wire. Bonsai wire that is aluminum. You see it online everywhere, and it's imported from Japan. And it is actually aluminum that has a copper color finish. And the second type is real copper. Real copper is heat treated. If it's used without being heat treated, it's difficult to use. But once it's heated to red hot and then cools, it becomes soft. This process is called annealing. So, wiring, when we place it on a tree branch, has an ability to move a branch about. But if we use the wrong angle, it loses some of that ability. You can see the one on top, the angle is just about right, so-called 45 degrees more or less, coming across the branch. The one on the bottom with the X is a little bit too long. The longer it is, the less strength you have. So how do we apply wire? Take a look at these 4 examples. The one on top is a little bit too close. The one below is a little bit too wide. The third one is too loose. It's not even engaging the branch, so it's going to be difficult to get much power out of that wiring. Take a look at the one on the bottom. Nice 45-degree angles and really nice spacing. That's what we're looking for. So we're going to proceed by putting wire on our trees today, but how do we do it? How do you actually go about doing the wiring? Well, the way to do it is to hold the beginning of the wire or the anchor point firmly with your left hand at all times. And as you coil the wire down the branch with your right hand, if you're a righty, you also are going to move your left hand along with it. That gives control, and it gives you the ability to move the wire without minimal damage to the branch. So let's say this again. With the wire in your right hand, you're going to feed the wire through your thumb and first finger as you make a circular motion with your wrist around the branch, carefully working down the branch, and both hands are moving together down the branch. When you wire, make sure you do a nice job. Don't go sloppy or loose. The tree doesn't really know the difference, but you do, and it's something you want to be proud of. Make sure you contact the branch surface with the wire. Don't squish it, but just snug it right up against. And if you're doing multiple wires, make sure you wire each wire right up next to its neighbor. That's a yucky looking job. Also, when you're wiring, you can literally do damage right on the spot by pressing and pulling. So you don't want to do it too hard or leave it on for too long. So the plan for today, we're going to wire the trunk first if it's needed. Some of the trees you may run across may already have an interesting trunk movement, and you won't need to wire the trunk. But if the trunk needs wiring, it's always first. Secondly, you will wire the branches. So how do we start? Step by step, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to wire the trunk. So you can see the wire here is an aluminum wire for purpose of showing it off real easily. And you're going to anchor the wire down into the soil a ways. That gives a good solid anchor point. And you can see the one on the right It's going to come up, nice 45-degree angle, twist around the back, and then right. And this is what you're going to do. You're going to wire it right up the trunk. Take it all. And after you've done that, you're going to give your tree some movement. This is sort of a sad example, but it's easy to see. The trunk has been wired. It was a straight stick, and now it's got some movement, left, right, moves up, and have some interesting bends. Secondly, we're going to wire our branches. What we want to try to remember is we're going to wire 2 branches with 1 wire. What I like to do is start in the middle on the trunk, maybe start here and give a twist and a turn, maybe 1.5 turns, and then I'll go back and I'll wire this branch on out, and then I'll finally finish it off with this branch on out. So it's a movement of anchoring the center and then wiring each limb right on out from there. So we're going to start by cutting a wire about 1/3 longer than the length of the 2 branches. So 1/3 is just a rule of thumb, but if the branches happen to be really, really thick, then you would want to cut them slightly longer. You will get used to that over time. You'll know just exactly how long to cut a piece of wire. Then you will start in the middle with the wire, and then you do 1 turn or 1.5 turns on the trunk and out onto a branch, and then you can go back and finish both ends. Here's another example. This time we have 2 branchlets within a cloud. So these are small branches within 1 little foliage pad. But you can see how the same technique was done. You got a turn, come across here's the anchor point, and you probably made 1 turn, and then came back here and did this turn, and then possibly come and finish this branch on out, and then finish this branch on out. That way there's no teeter-tottering effect going on. This way everything is nice and sturdy as you work, and there's no up and down, side-to-side movement, which can be damaging. Wire is sized from Japan in millimeters. The very smallest one we use isn't even shown here, is the 1.0 millimeter. And it would only be used on very, very small limbs, or possibly as a guide wire to hold a branch down. And you can kind of see the relative sizes. The ones we tend to use a lot are the 1.5, 2.0, and 2.5, over and over and over and over again for branch wiring. Trunk wiring is more up in the 3.5s and on up, and many of us use a copper wire for a bigger size. Even the 4.5 and up would probably drop down to a number 12 copper, which would do the same amount of work, and you would have a lot less visual impact on the tree. A good way to decide which wire you're going to use is to literally take a piece of the wire and put it onto the branch and push it down from the top. It's a really neat way to find out if that branch is going to move with that size wire. If you push down with a piece of wire and it doesn't move the branch down, you need to move to the next larger wire. And eventually you'll find the correct wire that will make the bends. So this is a beautifully wired piece of material here. You can see the coils are a 45-degree angle. 2 wires were used, and they're snugged up right next to each other. The branch on the right has a secondary wire coming down it, and then there's a 3rd wire branching out onto the pads. And this is just perfect. We're looking for an overall triangular shape of branches, and also the branch hangs nice and low below horizontal to give it that real appearance of being old and aged. This is today's goal. This is what we're shooting for. So are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, we will do it, and look for part 3 coming soon.